We are actually part of the user product and operations team within Lazada. So for those of you who are joining us from Lazada, we are part of that team, just in case you were wondering. And to introduce Paul without any delays. So Paul has, just can you go to the next screen, please? Paul has been working in the UX and product design field since 1980s. And in fact, he had designed a cutting-edge competitive intelligence application for the new Apple Macintosh in those days, in those years. So yeah, and his expertise extends to education and thought leadership. He's actually, I'm very proud to say that he's one of my mentors. So he has seriously shown me and all the different ways of thinking on UX as well. So he developed and taught UX strategy workshop in most of the bigger companies and the FANG companies, and a lot of others across Europe and USA, and also in Asia. He has been actually doing the UX Strat conference along with Europe and US, and recently he has also launched the Create conference, which is a groundbreaking conference dedicated to only AI product design, because the Strat conference was about UX and product, but it was this one is for AI related product design. So yeah, he is the MD for Experience Strategy Partners. He actually has a lot of different roles. So I will leave it to him now, and thanks for joining us and sharing at 1 o'clock in the night from US. Thanks, Paul, for doing this. Please, it's all yours. So please feel free to share your screen and yes.
All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, let me say thank you to Sanchita. This is very kind of you to invite me to participate in this BrainFood broadcast. I want to talk about UX Saves the World, how to ensure AI products are pro-human. First, I want to go over a little table with you. You go to work on multiple levels, and one is as an employee. And the way to succeed as an employee is to be a good employee. Easy enough said. And your job there is to add value to the business, to the products and services that the business produces. And the person that can help you with that and can guide you and can tell you if you're doing a good job is your manager. You're also there as a professional. That is your job right now, but you have a career that you're developing. And your way to succeed as a professional is to be a good professional, to learn about your profession, understand what other people are doing. You're responsible for your profession. Your company is responsible for your job right now. And if you're fortunate, they can help you grow your career. And maybe you have a wonderful mentor like I do, who is Sanchita, and able to show you some of the things that they've learned. And then there's you as a human being. So these are different spheres. As a human being, to succeed, be a good human. And that's to have a positive impact on humanity. I don't know how you can do that. I'm going to give you some suggestions today, but this is really up to you, what you feel like your responsibility is in that realm. But I want to be clear that I don't think that our companies are responsible for us saving humanity. I think it's a personal thing that you bring into the workplace, and it's a privilege that you have to earn. When you're a good employee, row one, then companies tend to allow you to grow your career, row two. And then if you're very talented and you're able to, over time, sow seeds of a better world, then you're going to be able to do that. But you have to earn that right. And being out in nature a lot, one principle that I've learned is that, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is that if your needs of safety are not met, then your needs of saving the world are not going to be possible. So my rule of thumb that I want to get across, this is almost the last slide as well, is safety first. Before you can save the world, you have to save yourself. Okay, so the things I'm talking about today, I don't mean that everyone needs to bring into the workplace immediately. I think there's some ways to do it that are intelligent and that make sense to the people around you. So back to the slide. I'm going to take this in two parts. And the first part I'm going to take is actually the AI product design, because that's the first two rows. I think there's a long history for our profession. I can start my profession user experience design or human-centered design or product design. And it has a long history of applying a human lens. I consider Leonardo da Vinci the ancestor of user experience, who was a scientist and an artist and an innovator. And he did everything, if you look in his notebooks, he did everything through a human lens and a human scale. For example, this is his ornithopter. And in this drawing that he made to help people fly like birds, he took into account a lot of human factors, their size, their strength, so that they could really be able to fly. And so he was very seriously about the user experience way back then when he was doing that. And I consider him the ancestor of user experience, because he always brought a human lens to every aspect of innovation that he was considering. So I consider him our ancestor. And then more recently, in the last 100 years or so, there have been some other evolution of this concept of human-centered design. There were time motion studies, ergonomics, which is what my master's thesis is in, human factors, human-centered design, human-computer interaction, and then user experience. I consider user experience sort of a kindness at scale. We're being kind to people to help them use technology so that they're not confused by it, and so they're helped by it. And I think that's what user experience's job is. But I think the field is evolving again, and I think it's going to be a different field in the years to come, and I'm going to explain why. And I think the first two rows of that table, you as an employee and you as yourself and your career, can have a lot of advantages by understanding these changes that are coming and then adapting to those changes. First of all, there's what one of my speakers, Greg Noodleman, calls AI for UX. That is, doing the UX work that you're doing, but just having AI help you do that work. And there's a few different ways. I'm not going to read these bullets. Sanchita told me we can distribute this presentation afterwards, so I'm not worried about hitting every point. But there's lots of new articles every day coming out about ways to use AI for doing UX work and making the work go smoother, faster, more organized, just a faster, better way to do user experience. And then there's UX for AI, so AI products and using user experience as a human lens on the AI, and that's a bit different. One of the main differences I think that people are going to be surprised by is how different the design process is going to work, because we've been, with all these years, I've been in user experience since, as Sanchita mentioned, I'm going to go a little bit about my history in a minute. But over all these years, we've been doing what's known as deterministic design. We designed a user interface or an experience, and then people saw that, and we tried to make it so that when there are different kinds of people, they would have different kinds of experiences that fit their personalities. We determined what they would see through the design. But in probabilistic design, we don't do that. We set up the factors, and we set up the parameters, and we set up the situation. But depending on the context, depending on the person, depending on the product mix or whatever that we have that we're offering to people, what they actually experience and what they see is going to be different each time. And that's a different way to design. And I think it's going to take some learning on our part to understand how to do that. Also, user experience has, especially when I was active in user experience design instead of events, we kind of were in the back room. We did our user experience stuff, and we interfaced with other people, but a lot of it was on our own. That's not going to be that way with AI. design. We have to work very closely with the data scientists and engineers. And then it's not a linear interaction at all. It's a complex path analysis that we have to learn how to do. Statistics have been left to brilliant people like Sanchita and others who understand quantitative research and things like that. But to be a designer with AI, statistics are the basics. You have to understand linear regression, regression to the mean, the way that the AI actually works. And that's going to be some math. And so some people are going to want to do that. Some people are not going to want to do that. Prototyping is going to be different as well. It's just a much more involved prototype than doing some wireframes on Figma and saying, press prototype. It's just not going to be quite that straightforward. And that's why I feel like my organization, the UX Strat, or it's now called Strat, and the Create events that we're coming up with, that's why I feel like we need to have a new way to teach people about this. And I'm calling it the AI bootcamp for UX teams. And here are some of the factors that I think that we have to include, or some of the components we have to include in the bootcamp. One is the best AI use cases. And if you're like every other organization that I've talked to recently, they're basically saying, put Gen AI on our product and do it today. And that's kind of the mandate, is to strap ChatGPT to whatever products and services that we're offering. But moving forward, that's not the way to do AI product design. It's rather, let's find out where it really fits and where it's going to improve the customer experience, and long-standing problems we weren't able to solve with websites and apps, we can now solve. And so looking for those use cases, I think, is something we're going to have to teach in the bootcamp. Also, the key junctures in the AI product lifecycle where UX can have the most impact. It's not the whole thing. It's at certain points we need to come into the game and to bring our best deliverables and our best conversations that we can with the data scientists and engineers and business owners, et cetera, at those points. Because if we wait later than that, we're not going to actually be able to impact the experience. And then the user research that informs AI is just going to be a bit different than the user experience research that we do for websites and apps, because it works different, and it has a different set of opportunities and paths that are going to happen that require a different kind of research. The models that AI uses right now, if we're just adding Gen AI to whatever our products are, the model is fixed. They made it, and then we just have an API that makes it work with whatever we're doing. But in AI product design, it doesn't work like that. If we're not part of the model, then we're not part of the experience. We're just going to be decorating it, or we're going to be, seeing how usable it is or something else, but we're not going to actually affect the experience unless we are understanding how the model's formulated. And that model is sort of a complex formula or algorithm that takes in a lot of factors into account that are then creating that design. And so if we skip out on the model part because it's complicated to learn how to do that, then we're not going to actually be able to shape the experience. Also, data collection. This is not user data or the kind of data that we're used to dealing with in user experience. This is the data that feeds the model. And this is the province of the data scientist, of course, but there are questions that we can ask during the data selection process, during the data quality process. There are questions that actually do impact the experience quite a bit. And so we're going to have to get our hands dirty with data early on. And then bias, it doesn't mean like I don't like that kind of person or that kind of person. Bias just means there's something that makes the data off, and it makes it not accurate and not random and not statistically correct. And then finally, prototyping and evolving the product. It's not just going to stay how it is. Things are going to change over time. So the model has to also change. And I think that we have to be involved in that. So that's the bootcamp idea. I want to see if we can train people to do that. I almost see this as a different role. I had the HCD and the HCI and the ergonomics and all that. I think this is a bit different from what I would say. Hey, you have a degree or experience in user experience. That's one thing, and it involves apps, it involves websites, But I almost think we need a different designation for people that have gone through the boot camp and then also progressed in those skills to where they're able to really contribute. And I think that's going to be a set of qualifications that if you develop those, going back to my little table, your row 2 and your row 1 are going to be much better off because the world is going to be changing. And over time, what's valuable today to the company is not going to be valuable tomorrow, or it's going to be very segmented off into a certain kind of value that you're able to add. And so I think whether it's called this AI experience architect or something else, I don't really care about that. But what I do care about is that people like Sanchita are able to hire people that they know, like that person has that skill set, and they're able to join, the team and be able to impact these products. And part of that is, how human-centered design or user-centered design is going to apply to the AI system, and the way to design the systems and the environments that they operate in, because they operate on multiple levels. Understanding how trust factors into it. I'm going to talk a lot more about trust later. The knowledge of how to incorporate insights into the training data and the model iterations as the model becomes better and as it learns. The way to impact it is through different kinds of research that we're able to do. We're able to bring that. And then being able to prototype the experiences, and then after the launch, be able to help to evolve that product. So I'm calling this AI experience architect, but I do think it's not going to be like the same role that we've been calling user experience for a long time. I think it's going to have to be something different. And so the point of the boot camps and the point of getting us upskilled to be able to work on this is to add value to the business, to grow your career, and I'm hoping to have a positive impact on humanity. And I'll explain why. That's in part 2. That's the pro-human part. Let me introduce the human that I know best, and that's me. This is me in 1990 when I first had my first user interface design project, and it was for a pharmaceutical information system, which had an unfortunate acronym, but I had proposed, I'd skipped over 6 levels of management in the pharmaceutical company and proposed to the head of research that, I think we could design a system that would let scientists capture what they hear at conferences and be able to process that data and then sort of use that for innovation within our own company. He believed it, and he was an amazing guy. He had Apple computers when every other corporation had IBM computers. And Steve Jobs came to our company. He presented the next computer during those days. It was really fun. He had a fun little presentation. But I worked on this system. I designed the user interface. I didn't call it user experience. I called it information science because that's what my master's degree was. But I was the person that designed the user interface, and I loved it. It was fantastic. But I didn't understand corporate politics very well. Kind of back to that little table, I didn't quite get the way that corporations work. And so somebody else who didn't do any work on the system ended up presenting it to the head of that large pharmaceutical company. So it was, you might think I was destroyed by that, but actually I was quite happy because I left the company and I was in Yugoslavia, which used to be a country, and I was photographing gypsies. And I was having a great time. So when I got the letter from the project manager that this guy gave the presentation for our system, I was like, great, good for him. Sometime after that, I started writing about this information science stuff, and I was able to move to Barcelona. But unfortunately, my editor got fired, and then I had no more contracts. So yeah, you can live the dream for a while, but then you kind of have to get back to, hey, what's safe? What's a job that I can have? So I started going to the library and studying the WWW, which was pretty new in 1994. And I started trying to understand it. And then I got a job designing websites in Barcelona. Soon after that, I went back to the US and joined a company called Sapient. And they're still in existence today. And they were flying us first class to Rio de Janeiro. So it was kind of high rolling again with a nice lifestyle and the web design stuff. But then the dot-com bubble burst. And so I took my little journey maps and all the little stuff that I was doing and started being a consultant. user research consultant, and I was fortunate to be able to work with some great companies. I gave my UX strategy workshop at Google, Netflix, Facebook, a bunch of other companies, and did consulting with different companies as well about user research and about ethnographic research and design strategy and things like that, and then turned that basically into a conference called UX Strat, and that was 2013, so some time ago. About myself also, that was the professional side of me, but on the human side of me, I am a nature fanatic. And this is a little friend I met this morning. I took this photo, a little selfie of us. I don't know how to describe it, but I guess people would say a little nutty when it comes to nature. And in that vein, my interest in innovation made me want to connect AI to design and nature. And I know that's kind of a stretch. I don't mean biomimicry. I mean, how do we design AI so that it's helpful for humanity in our next step of evolution? Because I think AI is going to be an inflection point of evolution when everything is intelligent and everything is talking to us, and we're able to interact with things in a way that we've never been able to interact before. I just wonder, like, what does that look like in terms of how it fits with the rest of the ecosphere that we live in? And so I did an exploration. My hunt statement was, how is nature designed, and what can it teach us about how AI should be designed? And then hunt statement 2, how can AI help humanity thrive in a sustainable way? So I drove from Amsterdam to Barcelona, and I was camping and doing photography. And then I drove from Cocoa Beach, where I live now, which is one end of the United States, to San Francisco, and going to national parks along the way there. And the result was the AI Humanifesto. It got developed during that time to what are the principles that I'm seeing, and how can we make an AI that makes us move forward, that extends us, that makes us better at being human. So I took my little old van with 200,000 miles on it and drove across the country and did photography. And I was looking for patterns and trying to find designs that teach me about what could this look like? What could I learn from the way that the creation is created? And that, these are some of the photographs of that time. I hope you can see them okay. But I was doing this with a purpose, and it might seem like a little bit random, but actually it wasn't that random. This is an elk that just happened to walk by me while I was in the Grand Tetons in Wyoming, which is where I saw the Milky Way for the first time, which was amazing. So these were some of the photos, and of course I took a bazillion more. And by themselves, they're nice, they're pretty, but there's a story to each of them. So this is just an example story. I know this is going to look a little bit strange. Sanchita, I apologize if you're embarrassed by this, but I want to show like what it was actually like, and not just those nice, pretty pictures.
Anyway, I want to help people that are creators that want to help everybody have a good life. And they're not really that hard to find. It's hard to get them to talk about what they do in a way that's meaningful. And that's where I've been really lacking, is helping them to express something that will help people become like them, because that's my whole goal. That's why I put them on stage, is I admire them. I think they're awesome. Ooh, like this guy. Look at that guy.
So each photograph has a story like that, and just me blah, 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 blabbing on as I'm thinking about this whole AI Manifesto thing. And these were some concepts that emerged, that the world is amazingly beautiful in its diversity, that balance and harmony are everywhere in nature and in the creation. That if I was well prepared, I would have options that I didn't have if I wasn't well prepared. Like, when it rained, and I was camping and other stuff happened, the better prepared I was, the more options I had. And then I got lost a lot. I got lost for hours and hours at a time on trails. And then I had to find a guide who I could trust, who was going to lead me out of that place back to my car. And then, as I mentioned, safety first. Trying to get to the next slide. There was a larger concept that emerged. I'm not going to really talk about it too much today, but I believe that we have pictures inside of us that that are very hopeful, and there are also pictures inside of us that are very fearful. And we give a lot of weight to one or the other, depending on how people react to us, depending on our conditioning, depending on our DNA, depending on our neurology. So I've written a book. I'm calling it Reset, using AI to reimagine your career and your lifestyle. And it involves making those pictures, the hopeful ones, more explicit. And so these were pictures on my vision board, but they're not there anymore because they came true. And so I have a workshop and a book where I want to show other people how to basically get the pictures that are buried in there out into reality, into everyday life, so that you're living the life that you really love, that you want to be living. And so on to the AI Manifesto as promised, the DBOTs. This is a sign to me to say that, by the way, this isn't just my idea. I came up with it, but we've been refining it at Strat conferences over the past few years. The first concept is diversity. And in all of my searches in nature, diversity was this is the by the wind sailor on the beach in front of my place. Diversity is everywhere, and sharks, believe it or not, have survived 5 global extinction events because they diversified. Unlike the Irish, when they had the potato famine, it was because they didn't diversify. They had one strain of potato, and that strain got sick, and so they starved. And so diversity is a very core aspect of nature. And when I apply it to AI, the lens to AI, what I see is enabling a variety of experiences instead of just one kind of experience. Incorporating diverse data sets and different cultures. Acknowledging when there are biases or gaps so we can learn and we can fix them. Accommodating different cultures and different languages. Right now, the models don't really do that. And then as society evolves and as we move forward, that these also move forward. Some synonyms for this: bias, equity, fairness. So diversity is, I think, is at risk because there's a concept in AI called regression to the mean. So in other words, if you flip a coin, 5 times, who knows what you're going to get? If you flip it 20 times, who knows what you're going to get? But if you flip it 5,000 times, it will be half heads and half tails. And that's regression to the mean. And so when you have repeated patterns that are efficient and lead to economies of scale, then what you lose is diversity, because that means people will get the average experience. And that's why on my travels, people were taking photos in one main spot that AI knew about, and then all the other spots that were more amazing, nobody was there. And so over time, whatever is popular is going to get more popular. And that's okay if you like popular stuff. I personally don't like popular stuff. And so if you want to optimize your life experience rather than living the average, then we have to fight for diversity. The next is balance. Balance is, I think, the one I spend the most time on personally. Key aspects of balance means harmony between opposing outcomes. So human contribution versus automation, experiencing nature versus digital immersion. I watched some videos of Mark Zuckerberg and all the screens that they're making and all the the headsets that put you in these virtual worlds. And all that he was doing with his family was being outside on the boat and just doing fun stuff outside. San Francisco's the same way. They make all the digital crack, but on the weekends in San Francisco, everybody is riding a bike in the mountains, and it's crazy. the distinction between what I do in my day job and then what I do for myself. Sophistication versus safety, environment versus progress, business success versus helping humans have a better experience. And back to my table, it's not our business's job to help humanity in this way. They have a job that is very specific to make a profit off of what they're doing. And our job, having a job with that company, is to do the same. So business success and helping humans is not something that I bring into projects and into the workplace. It's just something I'm aware of. I'm aware that that's a balance that I have to look out for as I start designing things. So some synonyms for balance are sustainability, well-being, human empowerment. And this symbol, to me, is a symbol of balance. Basically, it's the one behind me. And this is me in the Grand Canyon holding it up. The orange heart represents red, passion, engagement, things that you feel proud of that you've done. And yellow, joy, things that make you happy. And that's the orange heart. It's going for it. It's having things in your work life that you really enjoy doing and that you're very good at. The blue circle is calmness, is safety. And I think, even my kids, they don't need the same degree of those things and different life stages and different times, but there's a balance. And I think that that balance gets lost with AI sometimes because it goes to extremes. And that's what I think is a danger. This is a little animation that I asked my team to make. And I said, anytime that you feel stressed by your orange heart being too much what I'm emphasizing, you need some blue circle. So here's a little breathing. And I said you can do that as often as you want and whenever you need to. Options, opt in. I think a lot of times, and it's not practical to give people options with AI. It's just, they just don't even want those options because they want it to do what it's supposed to do. But there are times when we will want control and we don't want to be forced into the AI part of the solution. And that's where the options come in, the control factor. And I think that there are places where it makes sense and there are other places where it doesn't make sense. But the idea of including options and bringing that to the table when you're designing the products is very important. So this has to do with control, user autonomy, transparency, things like that. And some synonyms for this are governance and I can't read the other one because I don't see my notes. Accountability. So these are some key aspects of options. This is the one, trust is the one I think that the business can understand. Because if people don't trust your AI solution, they will not use it. And I think this is the one we can make a case for when we're on AI products right now. I think some of the other ones balance, like who's going to understand that? I don't think anybody's going to understand that in a business context. But trust, they're going to understand. And as user experience professionals, we can make that argument that if we don't make something trustworthy, and we don't calibrate that trust, in other words, they shouldn't trust it too much and they shouldn't trust it too little, depending on the application. If it has to do with booking a flight, that's one thing. If it has to do with brain surgery, then the trust is quite different from what you're going to want from that system, and that's called calibrated trust. And so I think this is one aspect that we can really drive home early on in bringing the AI Humanifesto to our teams. So trust is earned. It's not necessarily given. It requires that people believe that you're taking their interest into account rather than just the business interest. And then once it's broken, you just can't get it back. Just like in real relationships, trust is, once you show you're not trustworthy, then you're not trustworthy. And so I think we can make that argument to the companies fairly easily, but we have to do it intelligently and not endanger our jobs. If you get fired, you can do all the preaching of the AI Manifesto you want. It's not going to help anybody because you lost your seat at the table. So I think trust is one of those things where we can have a big impact. And again, we're going to give out the presentation, so I'm not going to read all this blah, blah, blah to you. But trust, I think it's pretty evident what that means. Other words for it: transparency, reliability, explainability. And I think, again, this is the foundation that we can begin with. I can't see my notes, so this is what I just said a minute ago. And then safety, I have it last because I wanted to have the acronym. Actually, Sanchita had suggested that, and I agree with it. But safety, I think, is number one. And I think safety first. And safety in AI design means it's not going to harm people. And, you know, you in the business might have different ideas about what that harm looks like. And I think that we have a job to do, and we need to do it well. You know, my wife worked in a hotel for a while, and they would have people that had reservations that they didn't have rooms for. They actually had rooms, but that wasn't a person that they were going to give them to. And what you're supposed to be is not empathetic. You're supposed to act empathetic. And she ended up giving them rooms. Well, you know, the business didn't like that, but you know what? They were right, actually. They had a model, and they had a way of doing things. They had a capacity. And even though she was being nice and human-centered, it didn't really serve the business very well. And so I think we have to approach these things intelligently. Safety also involves privacy, informed consent, security. These are aspects of safety. And some synonyms: security, privacy, robustness, safety first. For example, this is me hiking, having a good time, and about 10 minutes later, I saw this sign. I wasn't safe. And I love the last one. It's blah, 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 do this, do that. Fight, back hard, as in, like, what other kind of fighting is there? But anyway, I was not safe. This is where I swim every day after I exercise. And this is what I saw one morning. I don't know if you can tell what those are. Those are bull sharks, and they're 2 meters off the shore, exactly where I swim every morning. That's an alligator in a lake that I was sitting next to here in Florida. Got a lot of those. A business has a responsibility to its shareholders to make a profit, and most businesses don't have kindness OKRs. You're not going to help a lot of people if you lose your job, so be a good human, live your values, but safety first. You know, I have some limitations. This is one of my limitations is I have severe ADD.
Thank you so much. It was really amazing. Hello, I'm here with Paul Bryan at the Strat conference. I think the biggest question people want to know is, where do you get your inspiration?
Nature is a big inspiration for me, like that parrot over there in that tree. Like that parrot over there in that tree. Yeah, I have some limitations, but I hope you got something out of this, and I would love to answer some of your questions.